Imagine working on products that are used and loved by millions of people. That's the reality for product managers, which I think is so cool, and there really isn't anything like it. And that's part of the reason why I think it's so worthwhile to work hard to become a PM. In this video, I'm gonna share 6 different things that helped me go from a PM intern who really didn't know much at all to a senior product manager with dozens of launches under his belt. I'm gonna share things all the way from understanding the tech side of things to building connections with your company and everything in between. Number 1 is around understanding tech and how software is built at a pretty deep level. First things first, you definitely do not need to know how to code to be an effective PM. I did study computer science and launched a couple of iPhone apps, which really helped at the beginning of my career, both to get a PM job and to ramp up quickly. But with that being said, knowing how to code is not a hard requirement. What I do think is a requirement is at least having a basic understanding of how code and systems work to power the features in your product. Everything we end up building is ultimately done with code, so having an understanding of it is kind of foundational to becoming an effective PM. It also depends on what team you want to end up working on. Some teams are very user experience focused, while other teams are more technical focused, like a platform team, for example. So if you're non-technical, one recommendation could be to gear more towards those user experience teams so you don't have to have a really strong understanding of how code works. I also think that when it comes to talking to other stakeholders at your company, like customer support or sales, having an understanding of technology is important so that when something comes up, you either don't give false hope that something can be built or say no to an idea that actually can be built. My advice here would be to take a free course on Codecademy to just learn the basics of coding and how it works. Another good resource is a book called Swipe to Unlock. I read this at the beginning of my career, and it gives you a basic intro to the world of tech and helps you start familiarizing yourself with different concepts and lingo. Number 2 is being very proactive in figuring things out. As the PM, you're almost like a detective on the team, trying to uncover problems that the users are having, or maybe debugging issues in your product. And instead of waiting for someone else to figure it out, the best PMs go out and figure out the problem themselves. For example, you shouldn't have to rely on a product analyst to find out insights from your users. You should really work on building the skills to analyze how your users are using the platform, understanding concepts like funnels and cohorts, and trying to uncover like what on your product is being tracked right now and what isn't. So where are those gaps that you need to introduce analytics into so you can better understand your users' behavior. Another example is that if you find a bug in your product, instead of just filing that bug away and waiting for someone else to figure out the core problem, actually try to figure out what is causing that bug yourself. So that way, when it gets to the engineer, you've already laid out a possible area for them to explore. Engineers will really appreciate when you do this, and it means that the bug is going to be fixed much earlier. One last example is if you have a burning question about how your users think about something, instead of waiting and relying on a user researcher, you should talk to your customers directly. Take initiative, find those insights, and bake it into the final solution. Number 3 is understanding that you likely are not Steve Jobs. What I mean by this is that while you may have some ideas that are good, so do other people on your team. One of the worst mistakes that a new product manager can make is thinking that all the ideas that they come up with are the best possible solutions for the problems at hand. I know I was definitely guilty of this early in my career, and as you grow as a product manager, you'll learn that your role is really to help guide a team of specialists come up with the best possible solutions for your users' problems. Engineers are excellent at determining how a product needs to be built and architected because they're in the code base day in and day out. They may also come up with solutions that you haven't even thought about because you're not as intimately familiar with the code. Similarly, a designer is trained and is solely focused on providing an amazing user experience to the user. It's important that when you collaborate with a designer, instead of telling them that their designs won't work for XYZ reasons and you would have done it a different way, you should instead provoke thought by asking different questions and putting them in the shoes of the user based on different learnings that you've had throughout the user research process. All of this to say, don't have a big ego and approach every situation from a curiosity perspective. This is going to end up resulting in the best possible product for your users. Number 4 is follow through. The best PMs are excellent at this. If something comes up, they are seeing through that problem all the way to the end. And if they promise someone something, it's definitely gonna get delivered. On a product and engineering team, there could be so many different things happening at once, from different projects and work streams to high priority bugs or research projects that are going on. And it is the PM's job to really make sure that all of these work streams are moving forward and they're tracking towards their goals effectively. I personally love the app called Things 3 for my Mac. It really helps me create to-do lists that I can add a lot of detail to, and basically anytime anything comes up where I'm not able to respond immediately to it, I'll add a to-do item so that I don't forget about it and I always follow up. PMs will really do whatever it takes to get a feature out. If that means sitting down with the legal team for hours to go over different options for messaging, or writing customer support macros so that the customer support team can be prepared for the launch, the PMs will make sure that it all gets done in an appropriate timeline for the feature to be launched. Having strong follow-through builds immense trust with people on your team, your manager, other product and engineering teams, as well as other people around your company. Trust goes a long way, and people will listen to your ideas and opinions more if they do trust you. Number 5 is communicating wins, learnings, and your plans. First off, I think it's really important to really loudly celebrate wins. At the end of the day, everyone is coming to work every day to create great user experiences, and when we can actually successfully do this, it's exciting to actually announce that to the company, to your team, and I also think it's important to shout out individuals on your team who directly contributed to the successful launch that you had. Second, it's really important to communicate learnings. And there are 2 types of learnings, I think. There's failure learnings and there's just straight insight learnings. In terms of failures, a lot of the time your products will not succeed. When this happens, it's certainly disappointing because a lot of effort has been put into it, the team was excited about the launch, and ultimately the feature may have failed. But that's just one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is a potential opportunity because you've now learned something about your users. You know what doesn't work. So instead of seeing that as a failure, turn that around and view it as an opportunity and communicate that out to the team that, hey, we actually have this new learning that we can go out and iterate our solution based off of. The second type of learning is an insight based on research. So this may be something that you found in the data that shows your team how your users are using your product. It could be a customer quote from a user interview that you've done that really helps to build empathy on the team. And these small little tidbits really help the team get aligned. So there's a shared understanding of what are our users' biggest pain points and how are they actually experiencing the features that we built. Finally, it's really important to communicate your plans, both at the macro level of here's our roadmap, here's what we want to work on in the next 3 to 6 months, but then also tactically for a specific project that you're working on. It's really important that everyone on your team knows exactly what the plan is to get that feature out there so that everyone is aligned, everyone's on the same page, and they know what to do. The 6th thing I did to become a successful PM was to build really strong connections with people in my companies. As I mentioned before, trust is a really important component of being an effective PM, and one way to build trust is to build relationships. The best time to do this is when you start a new job because you have an excuse to meet with a bunch of different types of people to learn more about their jobs, more about their background, and that way when something comes up, you know who to go to, and vice versa, they know that they can come to you with ideas and suggestions about the product. Part of building connections is consistently getting feedback from other people on your team and actually improving on it. So seek out advice and feedback from the designer and engineers on your team as ways to become a more effective PM. And another thing that helped tremendously was finding a mentor in your company that you can actually learn from. This person should be at least one level above you, and just having conversations with them, observing them in meetings and seeing how they run their team can dramatically improve your skill set as a product manager. And the last thing you can do is watch 4 different things I learned after 61 product manager interviews that I did back at the end of 2022.